It's Thursday. How's everybody doing? Great to have you here on Daily Distinction. So happy that you're watching, and I'll just jump right on and say, please share this this live stream here, because that's the way we grow our audience and things get better for us. So if you would share it, that would be fantastic. Thanks for being here as always. Got some news about guests coming up as well, and one I'm thrilled. More than one, all three I'm very excited about. We're going to have more as well. But one that I'm extremely excited about is that Monday, Joe Bonsall of the Oak Ridge Boys will be joining us, the Country Music Hall of Famer, multi-platinum recording artist. And if you're on YouTube, you may have seen some parody editions of their song Elvira, where people are singing Elvirus. So got to ask Joe what he thinks about that, and a whole lot more. The longtime member of the Country Music Hall of Fame group, the Oak Ridge Boys, Joe Bonsall, will be joining us on Monday. Joe's a good friend, and I can't wait. So I appreciate, in a very, very busy time, I appreciate him making the time to do this. It's strange. It's not busy in the sense of, them traveling and doing shows, but he's got a lot going on in his personal life and a lot going on that's keeping him hopping. So look forward to that. And also we'll reschedule Phil Jones. He was going to be on Monday. He's kind enough to understand a reschedule with us. So I'll let you know when Phil's going to be on. Derek is going to be on soon. So all good. Glad you're here. Thanks for joining. Want to say, hey, Dwayne. Yeah, you had to. I appreciate that. Had to catch a couple replays. I've been watching replays of some of my favorite basketball games, Dwayne, and it turns out the same way every time I watch it. I keep waiting for it to get better. And I'm sorry I don't get any better on replay, but I appreciate you. I appreciate you watching. So thank you. Bruce, I'm going to double check this. I had somebody else write and say that they couldn't get on the business page. So thank you for watching wherever you happen to be. Part of the reason we were trying to move folks over is because of Facebook changed their algorithm, and it wasn't allowing posts from personal pages to get on StreamYard, which meant I couldn't show them online here like this. So evidently that's been fixed. I don't know if that's a StreamYard update or I think it's more of a Facebook update, but that was taken care of. So thank you for that. And your book will be heading out very, very shortly. So Bruce is one of the winners when we do for 3 free iconic books. So Joe Bonsall on Monday, a couple other guests coming, and actually you can go on our Facebook page if you can find it. And what I may do is to post on my personal page where that is, so you'll get a link there. So that'll get you there. But really, really looking forward to this. Hey, Ron. Oh man, you have been listening. I really appreciate that. He says, got my pen and my notepad like Og and Zig at your induction. If you don't know what Ryan is talking about, I spoke here that when I first went to the National Speakers Association, and the first event that I went to as a young, beginning speaker, I walked in, and I was nervous anyway, right? I mean, here you are in a new situation, surrounded by new people, and I was nervous about that. And I look in, and there's Zig Ziglar sitting there, but he's not there to teach the course. He's there with his pen and notepad to take notes. And then another room down the hall, there was Og Mandino sitting there taking notes at a session. And Og Mandino, of course, wrote, some folks say, second only to the Bible in terms of sales. He wrote, the greatest salesman in the world, and on. Just so many incredible books by Og Mandino, Michael Jackson's favorite author, as was often said. And, here they are, just ready to learn and study and take notes. And I was blown away. And then many years later, when I was inducted into the Professional Speakers Hall of Fame, one of the great things about the video is you see Og and Zig, giving as a part of the standing ovation when I got inducted. And I think, what's wrong with that picture, man? I should be in the audience cheering them. I have no right to be up here with them cheering me, but that's just the kind of people that they were. And it's something I think we need more of today, is humility and just that constant desire to learn, no matter how successful that you are. I think that's one of the interesting things, that comes out of, I haven't seen all of it, but some of the Michael Jordan documentary that's going on right now that's so popular, is that people are talking about how, Phil Jackson had a plan. He was the coach, he had a plan of how he directed the players on that team. So Michael Jordan Boy, there's a slip up. Michael Jordan was just so competitive. He continued to work on his game, continued to learn. And even though people were already saying the greatest basketball player of all time, um, he continued to push, continued to learn. I also, as an Indiana Pacers fan, have found it so interesting that they said that the biggest threat that they had over the entire run was the Indiana Pacers when they took them to 7 games in the Eastern Conference Finals to see who would go play for the NBA championship. That was such an incredible year. And man, I still remember just being heartbroken over that loss as a Pacer fan in Game 7. And interestingly enough, when you think about things that you don't think could be true, 25 years ago today, I was driving. I had a speech in Tampa that was over, and I was driving to a speech in Orlando. Right, Tampa, Orlando, you wouldn't fly, you just drive it. And so I've got a rental car, and as I'm in the rental car, I am listening to the NBA playoff game between the Indiana Pacers and the New York Knicks. Now, it's hard for those of you who either aren't Knicks or Pacers fans or who aren't sports fans to understand the depths of the rivalry at that time between the Pacers and the Knicks. Because New York had kind of put us down, being from Indiana, and Spike Lee, represented New York and his antics, from his courtside seat, and on and on and on. And I remember driving, and the game was close, but the Pacers just could never get over the hump. And as it got closer, now it'd been a blowout. Now it's down to a 6-point game. As I'm getting to Orlando, and I think I've got to see the end of this. So I whipped the car in one of the hotels there at Disney, and I'm not even the one I'm staying in, right? And I run in, and there's this huge television in a lobby bar, and there's a bunch of Knicks fans that are cheering. And I take my seat. I'll never forget. I ordered Diet Coke. They kind of look at me, but I still got to drive to the hotel room. And I sat there, and now it's a 6-point game, but there's only like 10 seconds or so left. And it's over, right? And the Knicks fans are cheering. And then Reggie Miller hits a 3-pointer. And I couldn't help it. I stood up, and they kind of turned around and looked. And in that instant, he stole the inbounds pass, had the presence of mind to step back behind a 3-point line, hit a second 3-pointer. Now it's a tie game. He's tied the game just like that. Now they go down, and there's a foul, and it's an offensive foul, and Reggie Miller gets fouled, so he goes to the free throw line, so he hits 2 shots. He scores 8 points in 9 seconds, 8.9 seconds to be accurate. And it was a basketball miracle. And I'm going crazy. I couldn't keep it to myself. I just couldn't believe it. There I am alone, in this lobby bar in Orlando. But it really brings home the point to never give up. As corny as that sounds, I remember sitting there looking at my Diet Coke thinking, it's over, and here we go again, and we're going to lose to the Knicks again. And this whole Knicks versus Hicks thing that they were promoting, right? Because the Indiana Pacers were the Hicks against the New York Knicks. And it was just an impossible result. And I think back on that often when you think you can't do something, to stop and think, well, when you're 6 point down with 10 seconds to go, do you think you're going to win the game? Well, it happened. I saw that one statistician estimated that the Knicks' odds of winning at that point were 99.7%. The Pacers had 0.3% chance of winning, and they did. So, as they say, it ain't over till it's over, as Yogi Berra said. And there you go. So no matter what's going on, it is always a good time to remember that pretty cool that things can happen. By the way, one of the really fun things that I've read in the local Indianapolis paper here recently was that Donnie Walsh, who was the general manager, so basically the CEO of the Pacers, was so disgusted with how the team was playing, and at that time's a smoker, he stepped outside Madison Square Garden to light one up in the tunnel there that led to the outside. And one of the former Pacers players came running out. Mel Daniels came running out and said, "You got to see this." And he's like, "Oh, what? Are they celebrating the Knicks doing something bad that we need to see?" He said, "No, Reggie just tied the game." They couldn't believe it. So the CEO didn't get to see the very thing that the franchise became noted for. So that was very cool. Hey, Pam, I appreciate that. Thank you. It's cool. Bonnie, always great to see you. I wasn't bad mouthing your Bulls there. I was just saying that my team loved to compete with them, of course. Hey, Tom Webster. By the way, Tom, if you don't follow Tom on Facebook, you are missing one of the best follows out there, because Tom posted your recent post, and I commented on it. I just thought it was brilliant. Tom is a statistician. Don't get me started on those odds of winning stats. Yeah, I bet for a stat. Sports fans love to look at that, and it's so funny how they change by the moment, right? By the shot. Man, yeah, I'd love to talk to you about that sometimes, because I bet for someone who knows statistics in the process like you do, it must be really interesting. I posted something here on Facebook about, that we just ought to be more civil to each other. It bothers me that the language that's used by people that want to reopen everything is that if you don't want to reopen everything, you're afraid. I don't think it has anything to do with fear. I mean, I don't want to catch the virus if I haven't already, right? I mean, I don't want it. But I think it's just a different choice. And I worry when we get into the situation that people that don't agree with us are either jerks or afraid, or language that's worse. And, they're incredibly valid viewpoints. So I put in there results of a poll of what people thought about the reopening. And it's really interesting that people attacked the poll, or said that, polls are no longer valid because people are only presenting what they've heard from the mainstream media. How's that different than a poll before an election? And it's really, I've got a call tomorrow. We're going to commission a study on what organizations can do to attract business in a post-pandemic marketplace. And we're commissioning that with a research firm, and got a call on that tomorrow to be able to bring to my corporate clients some really good data of what customers are going to be looking for. And, it's always easy to attack the poll when it doesn't agree with how you feel. Joe Calloway and I talk about this buddy of ours that said he was absolutely convinced that President Obama wasn't going to win re-election because no one he talked to was going to vote for him. Well, see, there's the problem. You're not talking to a cross section of people. It's that you tend to associate with people that have similar ideas and ideology as you do. Hey, I'm not being critical of your ideology in the least. I mean, you can vote for whoever you want to vote for, but to think that he's going to be defeated in a landslide because all of your friends are voting like you do is not really representative of the total population. So I just think we need to, whatever side you're on, and I'm not saying which side I'm on, but whatever side you're on, I think we need to be careful about the language that we use. I think that that is very, very important to us. Yeah, Tom, I bet there has never, ever been a case in what you do where pollsters really have had to have thick skins because, it's if the media doesn't report a story the way that we see it, then it's fake news. If the poll doesn't turn out the way that we perceive that it's going to, then it's very easy to blame the pollster or well, they ask the questions all wrong, I'm sure is when you hear a lot. So, it's really interesting that rather than just say, hey, people have alternative viewpoints and that's okay, we are blaming the pollsters, or hey, look, don't get me wrong. I was in news media for a while, and there's much about news media that we can certainly blame, but it doesn't mean that all news is fake news, and it doesn't mean is there fake. You tell a story through the lens of your experience, right? I mean, we know this from scientific studies that even you can line up 5 people at windows, they can look out, they can see something. Then when they're asked to describe what they've just seen, there will be variances, even though all 5 have seen exactly the same thing. The reason is not because what's outside the window changed. The reason is that it was seen through your filter, your perception. That's just part of human nature. I'm not being critical about that. That's just the way things are. So, even the best reporters are going to filter through their lens. Part of great journalism is being objective and not letting that interfere. But part of being a human is that you may not be aware of when it's interfering. So, doesn't mean it's fake news. It just means it might not have been reported as accurately as you would desire. We all need to be a little nicer to each other. I think it's really the main point here. Darcy, good to see you. Oh, the photo of Reggie shot up on my home game wall. Yeah, as we saw the game on TV. As a matter of fact, that was my screen for a long time, was Reggie rising up to hit that three that tied the game. So I know that. And I'll tell you the most exciting thing. There are two moments where I was in the stands that were just three moments I was in the stands that were just incredible. One was Reggie hitting the shot over Michael Jordan to win the game in the playoff game against the Bulls. One was Rick Smits hitting a shot at the last second at the buzzer to win game. What was it? The next to the final game against the Orlando Magic when they had Shaq and Penny Hardaway. And the other one, and I will apologize to Tom Webster in advance for saying this, the other was the Colts comeback win over the Patriots to get to go to the Super Bowl. So, yeah, Phil, there's always replay. There is always replay, but it's kind of like being on a Zoom conference. It's the next best thing to be in there, but it ain't being there. So, that's so true. Yeah, everybody has a different way of counting there. Well, all right. So you probably saw, maybe you saw on the thing. I want to talk about positive negativity. Positive negativity. I know that sounds like an oxymoron. You've heard all the old examples: jumbo shrimp, Army intelligence, all those things. But I think it is possible to use negativity in a way to be positive and to find positive things during negative periods. Here's some of the data I found on that I quoted in the book Iconic. A study from British households found that across 2 decades, especially optimistic self-employed people earned about 25% less than their more pessimistic peers. Here's another one. The National Cancer Institute researchers found that people who lowballed their risk of heart disease were more likely to show early signs of it. Here's another one. Married couples who were extremely optimistic about their relationship's future were more likely to experience relationship deterioration. Final one. Homeowners who underestimated their chance of radon exposure were less likely to buy radon test kits than those with a more realistic sense of risk, and therefore their optimism left them vulnerable. Does that surprise you? Well, I want to be an optimistic person. I choose to be an optimistic person. But one of the things I learned through the research is it's also important to be positively negative. In other words, what it was saying there, for example, with the study on heart disease was simply this. If all you have on is your rose-colored glasses, and every time that you have a sensation here, you think, oh, it couldn't be heart problems. Look, I'm in shape. It must be heartburn, right? Or what? Then you're less likely to take the steps necessary to get help in an early stage. Couples that go into a marriage with rose-colored glasses and think, we've never had an argument. Have you heard that? We've never had an argument, which must mean you're in separate rooms not talking for 25 years or whatever, right? Because I don't care who it is. If you live with them, you're going to have a disagreement. It's just impossible to me to think that that people don't have that. I'm not talking about going over the line and being rude and disrespectful to each other, but everybody has an argument. Good grief. Those of you that follow my friends Larry Winget and Randy Pennington and Joe Calloway and Mark Sanborn and me, we fuss about stuff all the time, but that's part of why we're best friends. You can have that, right? But the couples that enter a relationship thinking, we're never going to argue about anything, tend to have relationship deterioration. Or they become the ones that go, if we just had a child, it would fix everything. And we've seen that, and we know that, and we have friends that have done that, or else we have done that. It happens, right? But my point is this. I think it's important that we choose to be optimistic, but then we also look for the negative. Now, I talk about this a lot in business because one of the things that we're finding in business is that if an employee brings a manager a problem, right? Hey, I've noticed something that we're not doing right. A significant percentage of those managers think of the employee as negative, not just the information. We have become a shoot the messenger culture, whether it's in our personal lives or in our professional lives. And that really is a significant challenge. There's nothing negative about bringing us bad news as long as it is presented of something to make us aware of so we can fix it. I see so many businesses today that when a customer comes with a problem, you know what they do? They do whatever it takes to make the customer leave feeling satisfied. Oh, I'm so sorry. We'll give you a discount on a future purchase. Oh, what if we discounted that? Oh, here's something that we could do. Or, the airlines are great at that. We'll put 10,000 miles in your frequent flyer account. Doesn't that make everything okay? But it doesn't fix the problem, right? I mean, somewhere in the system, there is a problem. And unless we really are realistic about what those problems are, we're not going to be able to fix it. You can't fix a problem you haven't identified. Simple, basic truth. You can't fix a problem that you haven't identified. And so if you don't identify the problem, if you aren't willing to go negative enough to realize that there is a problem, what do we need to do to identify it and to fix it? Then it's never going to be resolved, and you're going to keep having these dissatisfied personal relationships and professional relationships. We have to be willing to go negative so we get a positive result. Hey, Derek, good to see you. Thank you for being here today. There was an interesting study, and it was talking about what's called a SWOT analysis. A SWOT analysis is done in business many times, and SWOT, S-W-O-T, stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So what you do as an organization is sit down and say, okay, let's do a SWOT analysis. What are the strengths of our team? Or what are the strengths of our organization, our department, right? Let's talk about our strengths. Great. We put that all up on a wall. Now, what are some of our weaknesses? And they write down weaknesses. What's the opportunities that we have in the market of the future? You write that down. What are some of the threats to us right now? One of the greater examples of this is from many years ago with Johnson & Johnson. And one of their most profitable products was Tylenol. And so they were doing a SWOT analysis many years ago. And so they're going through the threat part. And this legend of the story, anyway, is that the CEO said, well, what would happen if something was wrong with Tylenol and we had to take Tylenol off the shelves? And many of the managers didn't even want to consider that, but they examined it because the CEO insisted upon it. Well, many of you know what happened. A terrorist, and that's really what they need to be called, poisoned some random packages of Tylenol. And people who took Tylenol died from the poison that was in the capsule that they thought was going to make their headache go away or ease their pain. Because they had been through this, they were better prepared to respond. Here's the problem, though, in today's world. We've gotten to the point that we're so afraid of negativity that we do our strengths, and then no one wants to identify a weakness for being considered negative. Or the boss will turn around and say, well, we're only weak on that because evidently you haven't been doing your job, or something like that. So there was one study that said these reviews have almost become irrelevant, which I think is a real tragedy because we need to, and we need to in our personal lives as well. What are the strengths as we're going through this pandemic? Okay, so how do we prepare now to come out of it? What are our strengths? What do we do well? What do we do right? What are some of our weaknesses? I'll tell you right now, I do this in organization, staying super organized is a huge weakness that I have. All right. It does me no good to say That's an opportunity to be better organized. I have to recognize what it is. It's a weakness. And we have to recognize that in ourselves. What are our weaknesses? What are opportunities that we have out there today? Isn't it amazing that when we stop and think about this, we help create more opportunity? It is not a coincidence that some of the world's great fortunes, some of the world's great organizations, some of the great things that have happened in the world happened during a time of economic depression or pandemic. Google that if you don't believe it. It is absolutely true. What are our opportunities? And what are our threats? What could happen? Hey, I'll be honest. I noticed Shelly just popped on here, smiling, I'm sure, about my statement about organization. But, it never occurred to me, right? It never crossed my mind in thinking about what could be a threat to our business that a pandemic would shut down the meetings industry and there'd be no speeches. It never occurred to me to prepare for that. I should have done a better job on that. But consider that for a minute. I mean, to me, a threat was, bad health on my part would mean I couldn't go out. That would be a threat. Bad health would be a threat. I couldn't go out on the road and give speeches. Okay, that's a threat. So what do? I need to take care of myself. I need to make certain that I'm physically okay to be out there and do stuff. But it never occurred to me to create that for my own business. And I'm sure a lot of you are in the same boat as well. So the question then becomes, how do we do that? First of all, we get more positive about negativity. There's nothing wrong with trying to think of what the dark side would be in a situation. There's nothing wrong with taking off our rose-colored glasses. It doesn't mean we're not optimistic about the future, but the challenge is to be willing to think about what could go wrong. I've never been a big fan of the line, plan for the worst and hope for the best. Hey, Sherry, how you doing? Great to see you. Here's why I've never been a big fan of the line. You've probably heard that. Plan for the worst, hope for the best. First of all, getting the best is a result of more than just hope. Right? It's a result of more than just hoping for something. The best happens because you planned for that too. So I guess what I'm saying to you is this, what we're talking about today is this: plan for the best and plan for the worst too. It doesn't make you a negative person to look at the negative side. If it wasn't for night, we wouldn't appreciate the daytime. If it wasn't for the rain, we wouldn't appreciate the sunshine. We have to be willing to look at the negative side to really be willing to plan for the positive. Well, that's all for today. Glad you were here for Daily Distinction. And just a reminder that we've got some great guests coming up, including my great pal Joe Bonsall of the Oak Ridge Boys. He's going to be my guest on Monday. So please set a reminder, whether it's on your smartphone or on Facebook, whatever it might be. Please set a reminder to make sure you don't miss. I don't want you to miss any day, but particularly I don't want you to miss that day because it's going to be great. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow, same time. Thanks for being here today. Thanks for sharing the show. For those of you watching on replay, thank you for taking time to do it as well. I look forward to talking to you again tomorrow, right here on Daily Distinction.